Well, that's a look at that, but let's also take a look at some facts. China is demonstrating that its ascendancy is not necessarily a threat. While focusing on its own peaceful development, the country is undertaking more international responsibilities in a closely linked world that's undergoing real transformation.
This is one of the refugee camps in the quake-hit Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. On February 8th, the Chinese medical team was checking its equipment in preparation to leave. Local residents and volunteers came to say goodbye.
Every member of the medical team is enthusiastic about their work. They worked long and hard to do as much as they could to help the Haitian people. They treated nearly 500 patients every day.
The medical team and local volunteers treated 4,000 patients and disinfected 50,000 square meters during their 15-day stay. The two sides became good friends.
You make me cry. I will never forget you. I love you. I love you, Sinwa. Always remember, I never forget you. You are in my heart. I love you. Give me the possibility to go through art. Thank you.
This is the first medical aid mission for Chinese military professionals in Latin America and the furthest from home. Today, Chinese faces can be seen nearly everywhere that the stakes are high. China has played an active role in the international fight against the financial crisis. It promoted the establishment of an Asian foreign exchange reserve pool and canceled the debts of 49 heavily indebted poor countries. It contributes the biggest number of UN peacekeepers among the permanent members of the Security Council. And the world is asking, what kind of role does China play on today's international stage?
When I read newspapers or watch television these days, I see stories about China almost every day. Many people ask, how will China, a country ever growing and developing, interact with the rest of the world? And what role will China play on the international stage? Let me, therefore, begin my speech about China.
Foreign Minister Yang Jiechi delivered this speech earlier this month at the Munich Security Conference. It was the first appearance by a Chinese foreign minister in the meeting's 46-year history. China's voice is drawing great attention. In fact, listening to what China says has become routine. Last March, Premier Wen Jiabao said he was a little worried about the safety of Chinese assets in the U.S. These words immediately shook the American stock market. Senior U.S. officials, including President Obama, frequently spoke out to assure the security of those assets. Last April, on the sidelines of the G20 summit in London, the first meeting between Chinese President Hu Jintao and U.S. President Barack Obama overshadowed the summit itself. In mid-June, leaders of the so-called BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, held their first formal summit. They discussed ways to reshape the global financial system. In November, President Obama came to China. He was the first U.S. president to visit China in the first year in office, a sign of China's growing importance. Chinese diplomacy at December's Copenhagen Climate Conference was a fitting way to end 2009. Chinese delegates were busy fighting for the interests of developing countries. As China's role grows, some countries are asking Beijing to take more international responsibilities. They regard China as a developed country instead of a developing country, a coming superpower instead of a regional power.
When major world powers find they can't restrain China's development, they'll pull her into the world system. To newcomers, the world system always requires them to bear more responsibilities than they should have. Others speak too highly of China to make it lose its judgment and make wrong decisions.
Critics say the West wants to use China threat to contain China, and China responsibility to draw the country in. China needs a clear identity for its international status.
China is a global economic power, but it is not a global comprehensive power. China's political power is very regional, and mainly for the East Asia. China's military power is very national, mainly for the national defense. It can hardly have the long-range projection capability to deal with the security issues abroad. So in that way, I don't think China should regard it itself as a full-edged superpower.
Now, some analysts point to that China threat, and they say it indicates a gap in understanding, a gap in communication. Though it's been 30 years since China began its opening up policies and also its cultural exchanges, China is still very unfamiliar to many people.
This is a Chinese class at Rose Hill Public School in Sydney, Australia. 30 students study here for 40 minutes every week. In the past 18 months, they have learned Chinese characters, songs, history, and culture. Some have even mastered Chinese tongue twisters.
Excellent, well done.
As relations with Asian countries are getting closer, the Australian government is carrying out such study programs to help equip its younger generation. And Lisa Goodhand has benefited from it. She works for a company that trades with China.
Once I was traveling in Spain, I couldn't read the menu, but I met the Chinese. I talked with him in Chinese, and he translated the menu. Wherever you go, there are Chinese. Knowing the Chinese language is very helpful.
Over 80 million overseas Chinese are living in 180 countries and regions. China's growing influence makes it easier for other places to accept its culture. 2010 is the year of the tiger. The French post office has issued commemorative stamps.
This stamp is very beautiful, so I collect these commemorative stamps every year, and I will hand down to my children.
France has issued such stamps for 6 years. The designer is Li Zhongyao.
When I was drawing this tiger, I tried to combine Chinese culture with French culture. It was just for practice.
As overseas Chinese celebrate the Lunar New Year, the performances attract many locals. Brazilians in Sao Paulo are enthusiastic.
I'm very happy to take part in this activity. We're all attracted by the Chinese culture. It's great, and wish all the Chinese a Happy New Year.
In the year of the tiger, many are wishing China a bright future. And many will be watching the country's fortunes in the years to come.
Well, last year was, of course, a big year for China because of its 60th birthday, and in just over 2 months it will be another major event. This time the world's eyes will be on the opening of the Shanghai World Expo. Expo 2010 will serve as a major platform for showing off its historic experience, also exchanging innovative ideas and looking towards the future. With its 1.3 billion people, China has its own way to develop, and that way will continue to be a topic of much interest all around the world. With that, we come to the end of this special New Year edition of World Insight. If you've got comments on that, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email to this address. It's worldinsight@cctv.com. I'm James Chow. We're here in our studios in Beijing. We want to thank you for watching us. Join us again at the same time next week for your insight on World Insight. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year.